Hi everyone, my name is Steph and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here for what has become a bit of an annual video where I share my reading spreadsheet for the upcoming year, and I also make it available for you guys with the full disclaimer that I am not perfect. I work off what I've used in the past, and that if there are any mistakes in any of it, then it's probably something that I'll pick up as I go along and I will change in the template, but Google is always your friend. So it's something that I make available for people to make a copy of for free. So I'm not going to play tech support on it, but you are very welcome to use it and to change it and adapt it as you see fit, because I find reading spreadsheets really helpful for me. And if it helps you, you're very welcome to it. I have had a couple of years worth of reading spreadsheets. I'll leave all of them linked down below because you can always go back to those and update them and whatnot as you need to. I haven't changed any of the date ranges on some of the rules or anything like that, but you are very welcome to go and do that if you would like to. So in a minute, I'm going to jump into sharing my screen and let you guys have a little bit of a look at what is the same and what is different in 2024's reading spreadsheet. Every year I adapt it slightly to fit in more with what it is that I like to collect information on about books, and you'll see that this year there are a few little differences and tweaks in the way that I am collecting information. I collect a lot of data on the books. That's because I run this channel, and if I ever need to find a book or a recommendation or something like that, the data that I want to have is very specific. I also enter it manually. That just works in my brain. I know that there are probably far more efficient ways of doing it. If you want to figure that out, go for your life. This is just how I use it. So we will jump into having a look at the spreadsheet, and yeah, then I'll come back at the end. Here we have my reading spreadsheet for 2024. If you've ever seen one of my spreadsheets before, this is going to look very, very similar. It is set up in a particular way just for tracking reasons. Across the top, we have all of the categories. We'll go across through all of them, and then I'll go through the various tabs. As I said, I am not a technical expert. I am not setting this up to be professionally done. I'm making it freely available. So if you want to use it, know that going into it. Across the top, we have the month. Now, we have all of the months available in here. This helps with one of the trackers, but also is just a good way for me, because I read so much, to see where one month starts and stops without actually just looking at the dates, because that can sometimes be tricky. So you have the month, then you have your start and end date. These are calendar dates. So this also helps with tracking later on in the statistics section. You have a spot for the book title. The status is if it's a book that you have finished reading, if you're rereading, if it's a DNF, currently reading, returned unread, shelved, etc. This one you can obviously add more categories into. I just tried to put in the main ones that people might use. I don't actually track DNFs in this page, but some people do because they count them as part of their read. There is a section for their series, title, and number if that's something that you want to track. There's also this section for the author, and then the author status. I track if it's a new to me author, or if I've read that author previously. If it's an audio book and you have an audio narrator, there's also a place for that. I like to put in the publication year. So that's just a point of interest for me. Then there is if it's traditional, indie, if it's fanfic. You can change this category to anything that you like for how it's been published. There's also a spot to put in if it is a KU title for yes or no. There is also a drop-down menu for country. Again, this is not exhaustive. I have not listed every single country that exists in the world. These are some of the ones that I have been reading through this year, and obviously I need to add some more because I have read beyond those now, but that's just there if that's something that you want to track. Then there is how many pages long it is. I like to type that in. I like to be specific. That's just my personal preference. And then the audio length. And of course, your star rating. I do have half ratings in here. I also have a 6-star rating because that is my all-time favorite books. Then no rating and DNF as well. Then if we scroll across, you'll notice that the month, the start date, and book title don't move. That's intentional. Same thing, if you scroll up the top, you won't lose the headings. I just like to keep track of everything so that I can see it. You have readership category. So is it a kids, middle grade, young adult, or adult title? You have the length and then also the format. Again, these are not exhaustive lists. You can change these categories as you see fit. All right. Then we have genre. So I like to categorize books by 2 genres if available. I know sometimes they sort of fit under more than that, but my genre is sort of my main category of genre. And then subgenres is mostly where I've put in a lot of the romance subgenres because that's what I read. Obviously, you can tailor this more specifically to your personal reading tastes, but that gives me the option of saying, okay, yes, this is a romance, but it's a paranormal romance, or yes, this is a romance, but it's a contemporary romance, or yes, this is a fiction title and it's a contemporary fiction or a historical fiction, or however you want to classify it. Because I read a lot of romance, I have my Steam rating. Obviously, this is highly subjective. You can change it to whatever you like. I know people like to use spicy. I've had my discussions about why I don't like that term. You do you. This is what works for me. Now, this is where things start to get a little bit different from last year's spreadsheet. I was tracking all of these things, but I've just tried to find a way where I can actually track them a little bit more specifically. So I have the, is this book by a BIPOC author? Yes, no, or unsure. Same thing with queer author, and then a spot for other author representation, if known. So obviously I don't think authors need to disclose absolutely everything about their lives to us, but if it's something that's known, I like to keep track of that because then if I need to give a recommendation, I have that information available. Same thing with book representation. These two categories used to be together, so I've separated them out because sometimes there'll be different representation. And then my tropes and keywords section is the same. I always just type these in. Same thing with my characters or couple. I like keeping track of character names because I always forget. And my point of view, is it single, dual, or multiple POV? I have my content warnings and other notes section. So this is, again, for note-keeping purposes. If I need to recommend something, I also want to be able to say, okay, well, keep in mind these things are in here. There's a lot of different feelings on content warnings. I happen to like them, so I will continue to use content warnings and give those when I'm giving recommendations. There is a spot here for readathons. So if you're participating in a readathon, you can list which readathon it is and which prompt the book fits. And then because I film videos, I also have a spot where I can say, is this for a video project? Also, was this a book that was recommended to me by someone, or was it a buddy read? Those I don't use as often, but they are there for me if I need them. So that is the basic reading log. I also have a kids one, which I was terrible at keeping track of this year, but I would like to try and be better at. This is very simple. It is the month, the title, the author, the year that it was published, how many pages, which for a picture book is generally 32. Any teaching notes, because obviously I tend to use these books more on Little Bookish Teacher, where I am actually talking more about how you would use them with students, either as an adult with a child or as a teacher using the book in the classroom. So I like having some things in here. Could be vocabulary, or it could be the sort of the genre or the text type that the text is, and then also the age categories in here. There is a really simple section for a DNFs list if that's something you like to keep track of. There's no drop down menus or anything in here. This is more just a list. I have my acquisitions page, which again, I didn't use this year, but I may consider using more next year because I'm hoping I will not just keep going on a book buying binge. Then there is the recommendations page. So this is if someone has recommended you a book and you want to keep track of it. You can track when the recommendation was given, and then obviously the book title, author, who it was recommended by, and any keywords or ways that they convinced you to read it. Okay, and then we come to my statistics page. I am not a fan of graphs. You guys can take this and turn them into graphs however you like, but graphs and I don't always work, whereas I'm very much a numbers person. So the genre is read up here. Anytime you select a genre, it will count into these categories, which are the main genres category. Same thing with the star ratings. This will count them up here for you. 6 stars appears at the end because I know not everyone uses it, so I didn't want to have it at the start. When I said at the start that the drop-down menu in the reading log for the month was important, that's because every time you select January, it adds a book to this counter. So this is my monthly calendar of how many books I've read. And then if I want to track how many pages I've read in the month, this uses the date range. So you do need to have the month and the date range to be able to use these two trackers. Same thing with length, and also with totals, authors, audience, read and reread, and Kindle Unlimited. All of those use the data that you input from the reading log. The favorite and least favorite reads is something that you can just input yourself if that's something that you like to keep track of. And then at the very end, this is the category section, so you can keep adding and changing what fits under each heading, and that will update in the reading log for you. Okay, so that is my spreadsheet for 2024. As I said, it will be linked down below. If you do decide to make a copy of it, I would love it if you could just leave a comment and let me know. You can just say thanks, and that's totally fine. I'm just interested in knowing how many people access it or use it or take it and adapt it. If you do adapt it, feel free to let me know how you change it. But yeah, otherwise, thank you very much for watching. If you want to let me know that you're here but you don't want to leave a comment, feel free to leave a graph emoji down below. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.